So that being said, just going right into it because we want people to have this information and to be able to hear your story. And when we're doing the pre-story, I heard one of you saying, and I believe that was Amy, that I finally get to use my voice. And that was so powerful to me. And I thought about that all weekend, Amy. So I want to start off with you, Amy. And I want to know, and as much as you want to share for a few moments, to tell us and share with us what are some of the challenges or circumstances that made it hard for you to lead the life. You mind sharing
Oh,
with us, Amy?
no, I don't mind at all. I think for me, it was the psychological and emotional barriers, the trauma bonding. There was I was emotionally attached, so emotionally attached. The beatings meant something to me sometimes. And then it was like he would have this way of making up to me, and that would make me feel like I was special in some kind of way. Um, there was a lot of fear. I think the one that was used most on me was I was in such uh, an I was in addiction. I done got so used to using like certain drugs and alcohol to numb myself and make me feel better. And that's all I knew. So it was like when he would threaten to take that from me, that made it so hard because that's all I knew. And that was scary, not to knowing how to live without those things. That was terrifying for me. That one drew me back every time. And then there was a lot of shame and blame that I really, really just thought that it was my fault, you know? And that bothered me a lot. So there's a lot of shame and blame and things like that. I had written a lot of this down, but I think that's all I got right now, if that helps.
It does help. Thank you so much for sharing, Amy. Now, Cynthia, I'm going to toss the ball to you because I know you were on a call the other day, and I want to hear what were some things or some challenges that made it difficult for you that you would like to share on this platform.
Thank you, Barbara. And also just thank y'all for having me. I feel honored to be here. So thank you for that. But like Amy, I didn't, you don't know you're in the life. My trafficker had used drugs and to lure me in. So that became, and for all practical purposes, my trafficker at the end. When I became older and less compliant, he sold me to another trafficker. Eventually, those drugs they just ruled my life. In many ways, again, they became my trafficker, right? Like that was the lure. I only saw myself as an addict. I never realized I had been trafficked. I was groomed to believe that that was my choice, with the sex and the drugs, and that there wasn't a way out. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Amy, would you like to share something with us that made it difficult or was a challenge, something challenging or an obstacle in your way that made it difficult for you?
To leave.
To,
Um,
I'm sorry, Amy, I meant Annie.
okay.
That's okay. Can y'all hear me? You know what? Thank you, ladies, for inviting me, and thanks, Barbara, for monitoring this. I love what everyone's doing with Restore Corp because one of my friends is part of this, Vanessa. I don't see her on here, but I just want to give a shout out to y'all that are doing this because it really means a lot. And don't we wish we had this conversation before this happened to us? But we didn't. So that was one of my points is stigma was lethal. I got out for the first time in 1998, and some of you might not have been born yet. It's 2026 now. Look, she's like, yeah. Um, and I think that stigma piece was the worst thing, but for me personally, and then I got out the second time in 2003. It was the lack of services and the lack of awareness, lack of education, all of it. And then the word trafficking didn't become legal until 2000. So I had no words to put to what had happened to me. And so, yes, there was a lot of guilt. There was a lot of self-blame. There was a lot of fear. And Cynthia, when you said that the drugs were your trafficker, at the very end, I would like to say in my condition and case, and I'm pretty sure you'll agree with me on this, is the drugs were ruling my life at the end. But that really, when I look back now and I you know, reflect on what I was thinking and feeling when I was getting out, it was my trauma was ruling my life. So I can't really say it was fully the drugs or the trafficking. It was the trauma from the trafficking that was making me make all these crazy decisions that no one else could understand. And I think that if we continue to do what we're doing right now is educate, 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 I think that more people will understand what trafficking looks like and the symptoms of it and the trauma reactions. They're multifaceted. If anyone's ever studied this, you already know. We could do something just that no one would recognize but ourselves. And they would say, "Oh, she's acting kind of weird." It's like I did a training the other day at a hospital, and I want to share with you what I did. And I thought it really lit up everyone's brain. I could tell by their eyes and the way they were staring at me. I got in this rolly chair. You know those really nice new rolly chairs that you go and you sit in them and they can cruise across the whole room because it's all smooth. And anyway, it was like a ride. So I sat in the chair and I had my microphone and I rolled to all the trainees and I was looking them in the eye and I was going in and out of the aisle. I know this sounds really crazy. And when I came back, I was smiling at everyone and I was telling them, this is what a victim might present at a hospital once she sits in a rolly chair. If she knows it can move or a chair can rock back and forth, sometimes trauma will let her act a little off keter. And so they were very opened up with that. They were like, I didn't realize someone would act like that. I'm like, yeah, it was me. Not everyone's going to do that. Some of you ladies that have been where I've been might have a different reaction, but for me, it's to find the most funnest thing in the room and to be part of it because I want to get away from what my mind's really thinking. So I'm disassociating and I'm pretending that I'm somewhere else at Disneyland, maybe, which we know that's not safe all the time. So those were some of my challenges was just misinformation and lethal, stereotypical, judgmental behavior of other people. Sad, right?
Thank you all for sharing. And Rachel put a trigger warning there, and we want to be mindful, extremely mindful for anyone who may be on the call that there may be some triggers. And if there are, please make sure there's a support person or someone you can call and say, hey, I need support at this moment, because we want to be very mindful that this may trigger some things because we just heard the words drug addictions. We heard the word trauma. We heard misinformation. We're hearing all these things. So these are someone on the call right now may be a current victim. The women you see now, Cynthia, Amy, Annie, we're looking at survivors. So we want you to know that on the other side of being a victim, you can become victorious. So that's why we're here on the platform today. That's why we want to be here to use our voices. And that's why we want to continue to give platform to let those know that the ones who had them in the life, or if you want to call it human trafficking, whatever it is, we want them to know that they no longer have power, that these women sitting right here in front of you using their voices, they have the power, and we're standing with them to let them know that we are here for you and we will always be here for you. And now let's think about it. When we heard those words, Cynthia, for you, what kinds of support, because we know you needed some kind of support, to support the people, the resources, who are the people that were there and played a significant role to help you lead the lifestyle?
Barbara, it's when Annie spoke just now, the truth of the matter is there weren't a lot of resources. We didn't know what trafficking was. We didn't, I certainly didn't think of myself as being trafficked. I thought, I'm just a drug addict. I'm just an alcoholic. I'm just a bad girl. I'm making these choices. Again, the grooming led me to that mindset. So in that time, I had went to 8 treatment facilities, got all kinds of help in that manner. But when you don't understand the trauma, as Annie just said, you can't treat it. You can't heal when you don't even realize you've been traumatized. So for me, it just became life and death. I ended up in a jail cell where some very sweet women came and explained to me who and what faith was. And for the first time in my life, I met a creator that said, and that is what projected me into the right healing path. Unfortunately, even then, it took years, probably about a decade, before I could say, huh, I was trafficked. It was kind of like an out of body experience. I was in a training at church and we were listening to the trainer, and I remember listening going, wow, it was almost like I looked down at myself and I said, that's me. That's what happened. Right. And so it was at that moment I began seeking out the proper resources, counselors, people with education, people that understood, and healing from trauma looks different, as we've already, even between us, it looks different for everybody. So that's when I began seeking out the right resources, just entities or communication counselors, anybody that could help me dig in and even remember trauma that I didn't even know had happened. Thankfully, we now have more education. We're still not doing it perfectly, but in the moment, it was just praise God for a jail cell and praise God for him for showing me, right? For like showing me himself and saying, look, I love you. Let's do this together. So thank you.
Love it. Thank you so much for sharing. Annie, let's go to you. What are some people, some resources, some places, some things? What were the things that helped you say, you know what, this is enough. Enough is enough.
Did you say Amy or Annie?
Annie.
Okay, I don't want to speak in front of Amy. I'm sorry, Amy. I'm just making sure. Oh gosh, when I think back, I thought about this question last night, and I'm going to be honest with you. Of course, there was nothing. There was no services back then, but I could say, which I wasn't going to go to, by the way, homeless shelters. I wasn't ever going to step in one of those because that scared the bejeebies out of me. Okay. I was a very independent woman, and my situation looked like I was just, I'm keeping it real. And trigger warning for anyone that's listening and watching. I considered myself a hoe, an ex-hoe. So where do you get accepted as an ex-hoe? And there was no language. There was no one teaching this back then. I was like an anomaly. If anyone's ever seen Stranger Things, you can raise your hand and smile at me. It's one of my favorite shows. I was in the upside down. Nobody knew what was happening. There were lights flashing, and everyone's like, she's trying to communicate. Something's weird. But I was in that space where no one understood unless you've been there. So, yeah, it was wild. But the safe spaces I had, unfortunately, I got arrested 25 times, and this jail was not a safe space for me at all. Nobody was in there. The police still were arresting us, and they still do in Las Vegas, but we were being mistreated in the jails for sure. I go in the jails now and I teach twice a week. So it's been a flip, which is so really cool. But the hospital's not a safe place for me. I was getting given Xanax every time I went in there with a panic attack. And no one asked me why I was having panic attacks. And then I never went to a mental health facility. So let me tell you where I found safety, which, by the way, did happen in a good way and a bad way. The church. The church was there for me. They didn't know what happened to me, but the pastors that I met allowed me to explain what had happened to me. And they were so empathetic and so full of friendship, love, and empathy and compassion that I gravitated to returning every week. And then I started reading my Bible, of course, and the light turned on in my life. And but the first thing that happened to me, I had to overdose to really understand what was going on with myself. And that was August 2nd, 2003. So yeah, I'm an oldie but goodie. There wasn't much, and I became the answer for myself, obviously. So that was it. A lot more involved with that, but we don't have a lot of time, so I could sit here for days.
Thank you
That's the
for
short of it.
sharing.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you. Thank you so much. Amy, tell us, share with us your support system. Who are the people, who are the places that what played a pivotal role in your life to say, you know what, this is it. This is where it stops. This is where I do something different.
when I read this question earlier before I came in, I just started crying. It was like after my 38th arrest, there was an officer that took me into, he arrested me and took me in. And for the first time after all those arrests, I've been arrested a lot, this officer, he had went through my phone and saw some things. And then he called me into a small office and he just calmly said, he said, I'm not judging you. And he said, I know you're in harm. And that's the first time in my life I had ever heard, like really had someone that showed concern and said they wasn't judging me. And it really meant something to me. I just started crying. And then it was the next day because they did hold me in the jail and kept me. They called a lady in from NHT, Nashville Human Trafficking. And they called me out of the pod and took me up to speak with her. And this lady told me everything that I had been doing to myself and the things that I was allowing men to do to me. And oh, I was so shocked. I was stunned. I was like, this is a thing. Like, I did not like, I just thought this was a life that you people lived, this was normal. But for her to just explain all the things in that there was help because I never knew help existed. Like, I never knew that help existed. And that was shocking. She's like, I want to offer you help for not just what's going on this in your life, but also for your drugs and your alcohol and the things that you use to cope with. Um, so that is, and she sent me to a place in Jackson, Tennessee, and that's where it all started. Like, it was in a jail, a police officer just showing interest in what was in my phone and, not judging me and wanting to help me. And then sending me to a resource that I didn't even know existed. And I didn't have to pay for it. I thought like everything like that you had to pay for it. I didn't have to pay for it with school.
Thank you all for sharing because these are the things that I'm sure she's over there just smiling, she's grinning ear to ear because these are the things that Restore Court by Free Life need to know because your voices, you're the ones who are out there and you come and you bring this valuable information. Even me working as a special victims unit detective, whenever I would come into contact, I was like an information gatherer, like giving me all this information to figure out what do I do with it. And Rachel, she knows I was always accused of overcompensating the victims because I'm like, no, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do that. And, and sometimes, Shelby County is telling me, look, you're the detective. There are other resources. Let them handle that. And that's one of the reasons I decided, you know what, let me step away because I feel like more of being an advocate, more so of the detective, because there was only so much I could do before my cases would be called into question of me tainting my questions, my victims, or even being accused in court one time as a victim coercion. And so, we could not stand for that. And so here I am today. And I just want to praise you all for what you are doing and just let you all know that we are so excited about you being here with us today.
Okay. I do want to jump in real quick. I'm not going to jump in very often. Fingers crossed. But I actually I wanted to say also, in addition to the trigger warning that I texted my team and said, somebody put it in the chat because I forgot to give it. But we also wanted to say from the very beginning that we wanted to have this part of the conversation. We didn't want, just for all of you that joined, the panelists already know this, so I'm really saying it for the audience, that we wanted to have the conversation from the turning point, because I think that there's been a lot of, whether they're sharing it well or not, media, movies, etc., that is sharing many different perspectives of what being in the life is, and grossly not enough conversation spaces, honesty about the lack of resources or the availability resources, or what it takes to actually make the turn, and what turning can look like for each individual. And even already for Cynthia to say, praise God for a jail cell that she found so much of her stability in the jail cell, but then Annie to say jail was not a safe space for me. That even on this panel, to see that the entry points and the pathway, the journey held highs and lows differently for each survivor. And so, ladies, I'm just really grateful. I also want to share another piece for Farmer-Tolbert that, as she even mentions about being an advocate, the way we got to meet her is that I think on a January day, she came across a survivor that wasn't ready yet to say, to see herself, to see her world. And Barbara wrote her phone number on the inside button of her big jacket that she was wearing in January and said, when you are ready, you'll have your coat. You may not have my card. You may not have the phone that you have today. You may not have the people that are currently in your world, but you will probably still have this coat. And so my number is right here on the inside of this coat. So when you're ready, you can call. And I think that ingenuity, the creativity, that's something that none of us are going to go to a conference or none of us are going to join a team and here in our training, always write your name in the bottom of a button or in the inside of a jacket. And yet the creativity and the discernment to do the next thing that seems right, that seems available to intercede where somebody is, and to also say it in a way, to offer it in a way that, like, today may not be that day, but when you get to that day, we will be ready. And at that point, we didn't even know. Farmer-Tolbert, she found us on the back end. She said, we will be ready and we will find what it looks like to be ready. And so I'm just so grateful that already what you've shared, the different pieces of each journey being different. And Annie, the raw reality of, even as you said at the beginning, in 2003, the lack of resources, and still in 2026, the extreme gap that we still have in so many of our communities, whether it be here in Memphis, across Tennessee, or over there in Vegas, that the work to still do. And so we just wanted to have the conversation that forward facing way. And I love it already where we're headed.
I want to say, Rachel, can I say something? I want Barbara to hear this too. Now, I did say the church was my first safe place, but let me tell you what was the first entry to that. Was when I first left my first pimp, which I thought was my boyfriend, by the way, and I still look back and I have nightmares about it, but he's actually a good person. He has a good heart somewhere deep down inside of him. I'm just praying for him right now. I keep praying for him because he's out there still working the streets. But I had this cop that kept repeatedly arresting me, and I would get so mad at him. And the last time he saw me, that my ex-pimp had cut my hair off, and I looked like a monster. I looked like Frankenstein. And I was running through this parking lot right in back of the Stardust Casino on the Strip. And my ex-girlfriend, she snitched off and told her ex-pimp where I was, because I was hiding out with her in her little suite when I had escaped him. And he saw me and he started crying. And he gave me his number. And he said, Fallon, because that was my name back then, Fallon, I can't believe you look like this. I'm shocked. And I think that next time I see you, you're going to be in a body bag. And he said, I want you to call me anytime you're in danger. So I took his number, and I was kind of hesitant. But Barbara, you doing what you did, that means the world, because when we don't know we can talk to someone about our situation, we have nowhere to go. And even as we're so connected with our cell phones nowadays and the internet, because back then the internet was just, it wasn't really around. It was barely there. I was in a total hell of my own that I could not get out of. And then television opened up my eyes as well. And that's how I eventually went to church, because I started watching Christian television. So I just wanted to segue that, because I wanted to make sure that no one thought it was just church, because there's so many different ways that we can exit if we have the right people to approach us.
Thank you for sharing that. And I do believe sensitivity training is a pivotal, is very, very, very much needed. When you talk about police officers and some of them don't know the encounter, And earlier, Amy, when you shared, you know what, I thought I was just a, a streetwalker, and I didn't think anything else. And unfortunately, a lot of the cops think the same way. And it's very unfortunate. And the sensitivity training needs to be there for them to understand there's a reason behind all of this. And people should be treated as a person and not what you perceive them to be. And with that being said, let us just turn so, for the sake of time, so we can have time for questions in case people in the audience may have questions. And let's start with you, Cynthia. If there's a common misunderstanding about what people think about trafficking, what's something you wish people would understand about trafficking? What do you think is a misunderstanding?
Unfortunately, it remains to be, it's a foreign young lady in the back of a white van, that still seems to be the visual that we can't seem to, it's in our backyards, it's in our homes, it's right here under our, right under our noses. The reality is that it's so much more complex. I mean, survivors experience trafficking and survival so differently. That also is something that there's no one size fit all. There's no one size fits all path to healing. So the recognition of what trafficking is and then how that healing happens, so individualized that there's not some cute little package that we can, set out here and heal from. I think that's the biggest misconception and misunderstanding.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Cynthia. Amy, what do you think is one of the misunderstandings that people have about human trafficking?
I wrote this question down because this really, really hit me, and it meant a lot to me. Because there's one question that I was always asked when I was out there, and it was, why don't you leave? And that question, that bothers me, I wish someone had just would have asked, what has happened to you and makes leaving impossible. Just ask me what's going on in my life. Why just ask me why I'm not leaving. But so for me, it's like I feel like most women in sex trafficking, they're not held by chains, and I think a lot of people out in the world they see us as held like in these chains, but we're more held by our traumas, our fear, and our survival. Many people imagine traffickers as survival, as kidnapping and by strangers or something, and locked in rooms and physical restraints. While that does happen, it's not common. It is not a common reality, and its misunderstanding causes real harm. When people believe trafficking only looks like force or abduction, they assume a woman could just leave if she wanted to. They fail to recognize victims who don't fit the stereotype. They blame the survivor instead of the trafficker. They miss the opportunities to intervene or help. Most women know they're traffickers. We're groomed over time. Like I was groomed from a child. This went on from my childhood. They are controlled through psychological manipulations, threats, addiction, and love. The addiction was big for me. We may appear free on the outside, but we're trapped internally. Like I was so trapped in here. Like I didn't know how to navigate like my internal things that were going on. Like I was never taught I didn't even know the what resentment meant. I didn't even learn. I had to look that word up when I come into a place that was willing to help me. This is why survivors, they may defend their traffickers. They decline help, return after leaving. They fear law enforcement. I feared that law enforcement would lock me back up if I went to them. None of that means that I chose exploitation, though. It's not something that I chose to just. I didn't wake up one day and said, "This is what I want to do with my life." I believe trafficking is best understood as coercive control, not just physical force. So instead of asking why didn't she leave, why should we be asking? Okay, sorry. what was the surviving that made leaving unsafe? So it's like the certain questions that people ask when they approach a person, those matter. Those questions matter. For me, it's trafficking doesn't always look like captivity. It often looks like survival.
Thank you. That was powerful. Doesn't look like captivity, but it looks like survival. That's powerful. That's powerful. Amy, share with us, Annie, share with us, what is a misunderstanding you wish people better understood about trafficking?
Okay, I want everyone to like take their little arrow and go on the bottom of the screen if you can and see that little white person going into that red door and says leave. So ladies, do you agree with me on this? How many times did we see that door? But we couldn't make our way to the door.
Mm-hmm.
It is an obstacle course. I don't care how many people you have trying to help you, because most people don't understand what your mind's thinking. Your mind is in a total mind game. It's a mind upside down, and I don't want to say the F word, but you can fill in the blank. That's what it is. You're in this tornado of thought that if you leave, you're gambling your life. You're going to die. Then what held me, that people didn't understand this part about it, was my sister had died, and I had a bunch of videos of her and pictures. My second trafficker was holding all my things. So no, not the money, not the clothes, those memories. He was stealing my memories. And I was like, I am not going to leave until I get my sister's stuff. And I waited. And by the way, I never got it, because you have to get to this point where I can't take this anymore. And it was life or death for me. And I think that when you're trying to help someone, it's really hard with trafficking, because, what you had said this, Amy, um, why don't you just leave? Well, there's other questions too. Why do you keep going back? I mean, I've already seen you 5 times. It sounds like you're just mentally dumb or something. You see it's written on the wall, but that little exit door, or that big or large or small one, even if it's a mile away or it's right next to you, we have the hardest time stepping into that freedom, because the light bulb hasn't fully gone off about, is that safe? Because we've gone and left before and it wasn't safe. And then we got re-traumatized and we went back to where we were because it felt safer than that door did. So I just want to make and help everyone understand that exit looks different for everyone, and your safety capacity and your trust looks different. And when that's established and you take a leap of faith, it can be very rewarding. And that's for me how I stayed out permanently. And then making the pact with myself of never going back, because I didn't have options. So I burned the bridge. I burned all my connection and all my friendships and all my numbers and my phone number. I burned it because I knew if I had it, I would have an escape back to that. So, yeah, that's a hard question to answer. And it's very like a little painful to think about it, So I'm so glad that everyone does understand in a better capacity today. Like I said earlier, the upside down is real. And until you've been there, you don't get it.
Thank you. Thank you. And I just want to just take a moment and let the room breathe. Everybody just take a deep breath and center yourselves, because I know that what we're hearing is traumatic. And for some people, this may be the first time they've heard this information this raw. My niece, who is a college student, I see she's online, and I want to make sure, and this is her first time hearing information like this. So I want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, Allison, that you're breathing. Okay. Does everybody just center yourself for just a moment? Okay. We have questions that are in the chat box, and we want to get to as many of those questions as we can. So for the sake of time, for about 15 seconds, I'm going to ask each one of the panelists to give a word of encouragement that you can share with someone who may be in a similar situation or knows someone who is. So about 15 seconds, each one. We'll go in this order: Cynthia, Amy, and then Annie, and then we'll go to the questions.
I just want to say that anyone out there that's experienced, just know you're not alone. There are people, there are resources available. Be patient with yourself. Um, you're not what you've been told you are. You are not the actions that you've done. You are not what has happened to you. You are an incredible human being. You have power, and there are people that deeply want to help. Just this panel alone encourages me when we get together and we realize, because sometimes it can feel real lonely. Man, like the trauma, that the abuse, the things that have been handed and dealt can feel real lonely. We present ourselves as hard. We present ourselves as having it all together. We have to. But just know, just like Miss Barbara has said, when y'all told us the story of that phone number on that button, and you said, when you're ready, nobody knows when we're ready but us. But you're going to be ready. And when you're ready, just remember the people in this room, the people that you've come across. I can go back and I remember my life and the little nuggets that were handed to me that I would throw away or not pay attention to, but they stuck with me. The resources, obviously, we've already talked about, weren't there like they are now. We still have a long way to go, but they're there, and there's people that care and that love and that want to reach out. So please just know that. Please know that you are more than what's happening in this moment. You can do this, and there are people that want to help.
I would say to a person that is like me, I would say help exists, and it doesn't mean that you have to have it all together or you have to have it figured out in order to come in. I just know when that lady first told me what was going on in my life, I was like, man, this means my whole life is about to change, and I don't know how to change. Um, and all I knew was the way I lived in the streets, and that's the all I knew, you know. So going into something, different is like, whoo, it's a lot. But for someone that is going through this with someone they may know, I would say leaving is a process. It's not a moment. For us to leave, it takes sometimes 5 times. It takes 6 times because we have to have that time. There there are reasons why emotionally and mentally that I went back. I felt like I was led to go back. It felt like that's all I knew is what to do was go back. I didn't know how to leave. No one's ever showed me. No one's ever taught me. So I had to. Those are things that you have to learn through life, and trusting the other side of things is that's very difficult when all you know how to trust is what you know. So those are the things that I would say.
Is it my turn? I want to just thank Cynthia and Amy for sharing these real intimate thoughts that sometimes we don't get to always share. I would like to say to anyone out there now, and most of the time, this is what I say. Hey, you're safe. You're safe. There is nothing here and no one here that's going to harm you. I'm going to keep you as safe as I can. And you sitting here with me is proof that you're strong enough to do this because you chose to try. And that means everything. And rest is not you getting rest right now and doing nothing, not getting a job right now. And just exhaling is okay to do. You don't have to be working. You don't have to work and have a job to show that you have dignity or that you're worth something. And your experiences matter, and your experiences are teaching me how to treat you better and other victims better. Like you're actually making me a better person because even though I went through it too, and we understand in a certain way, but not everything, not every experience is the same exact one. And to give you the dignity and the time and the space to heal. And it's not going to be the same for everyone. And take your time. Take your time. This is not a race. This is not 12 months. This is not 12 days or 2 years or 7 years. It's at your own pace, and it's okay to stop and pause and to just celebrate every single day that you make it through. And the last thing I like to say is what I say to a lot of different survivors is, hey, what you're telling me doesn't trip me out at all. It doesn't shock me, or um, I'm not icked by it at all. You don't give me the icks at all. I am really here present with you, and I am uh, taking in all you're telling me, and it doesn't make me feel like I want to go away. You're safe with me. So if someone could have said those things to me, that would have changed my journey a little bit, I think, in a very good way.
Thank you for that. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
We have questions, and some of the answers that you just gave kind of poured over into these questions. They segued over, but I do want Cynthia to take a moment, about 10 seconds for the sake of time. We have about 10 more minutes. And someone is asking, how can we gently, lovingly reveal someone's exploitation to them if they have told themselves, I choose to cope, and they do not regard themselves as being in a harm's way?
To answer that, there's the best thing you can do is listen and to be there and be consistent and be trustworthy and not try to force anyone when they're not ready. Just let them know. Like I know from the outside in, I've already said this earlier, we present ourselves as survivors one way because we're surviving. That's all we know. Like, I know it's very difficult. I mean, I have family members that have been out there, and being on the other side of that is very difficult to watch because it hurts. And we want to rush in and we want to rescue and we want to help. But we really don't know what that's going to take. But what we can do is let them know and know they're hurting. When the time is right, what matters most is that they remember that someone remained consistent, non-judgmental, and just love them right where they are. Even if that looks incredibly insane in the moment, we've already kind of discussed that. It's what we need. And there will be moments of truth. There'll be moments of sitting down. There'll be moments of, hey, can I ask you a question? And it might be one question and that's it, right? Like, that's all I need right now. See you later. I'm going back to this, what you think is a crazy lifestyle. But when the moment's right, they're going to come back. So I hope I answered that correctly. And I probably need to read it again. But if you would, Barbara, if I need to answer another part of that, but that's mainly it. There's just not going to be a, hey, here's the fix, right? It's more like, hey, I want to not judge you. I want to love you. Help me try to understand, just be compassionate and listen, just an active listener.
Thank you
Present.
for that. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
And Cynthia, there is no wrong answer. I mean, we are going to value exactly what you say because we want you all to share from your heart and to share what to the extent that you're comfortable. Okay. And so we're all here again. We're here for you and we're here to support each other. And I'm such a stickler for time. I'm thinking that we had until 1 p.m. We actually have until 1:30. Look at that. Look how God just works. So I've been given the okay to go ahead with some more questions. And so I'm going to go over to Amy. This question says, how does it begin in real life versus how people imagine human trafficking?
Oh, yeah. For me, trafficking started for me when I was a child. I was actually because I'm in college now, and there was a TBI agent that came to a school, and she was doing this awareness thing and allowing the kids, everyone to know about how real this is, you know. And I was so shocked because she was asking like certain questions, and one of the questions was, where do you think like trafficking begins? And no one really knew that like sometimes it starts in the home. I was 10 years old when I was asked to do my mom a favor, and that stuck with me, So it's like you're asked to do something like that. I automatically assume that this is okay. And this is what I'm worth, and this is the kind of love I can earn, So it's like by the time I moved out of the house at 15 years old, I kept that habit. That was a habit I picked up as a child. It was taught to me. I learned how to do that, So not only that, by the time I'm 15, I've already been groomed by certain men and things. So it's like it's just a way of life, So um, I don't know if I'm answering this question right. So I guess I think people imagine that it's just a kidnapping. Like sometimes women are just picked up off the streets and they're kidnapped, and that they're just forced to do all of these things. When that's not, in all reality, that's not. Sometimes we're taught those things um, by someone that we trust and someone we love. And when you're taught those things by someone you trust and love, it's just a way of life that you pick up, and that emotionally and mentally is so that is the chain. That's where I'm chained. I was chained for so many years by that. And I did not know how to navigate any of that. I was never shown, and I was asked certain questions that always made me feel not good about myself. I hope that answered that one.
Thank you. Absolutely, it answered it because you said, go back to where it wasn't always a physical captivity, but it's more of a mental captivity. So we get you, Amy, and we're here for you. Thank you for sharing that. Annie, I have a question for you. It says, how can we encourage survivors when they began trauma healing and it is long and it's hard and they feel it's one step forward, but then two steps backwards, and the patterns of manipulative coping strategies that they learn to survive? What do you say to that?
This is a question that's way too loaded. Everyone raise your hand and agree with me. And Claire, we're going to blame you for this, okay? Thanks, Claire,
Sorry, Annie,
for
you're
asking
more than
it.
capable.
Yeah. So I would say this is just at the top of my head. I'm not going to grab any studies or anything. For me and in the spaces I've served and continue to serve is to encourage, even if you're taking breaks from healing, encourage to really think about how far you've come and encourage them to look at the progress they've made, because it gives us hope. It really does. And to track, what they have stopped doing and what they've started doing better for themselves. And then I would also say, and why are you, focus on why you're getting triggered and what actually started that, to go back to and don't be afraid to go back and think about it. Obviously, if you need a therapist to do this with, this can trigger people out, to go back to those places where maybe it started here before the trafficking. Because for me personally, abuse started in my home when I was a little girl and I was in constant fight, fight, freeze, fawn mode with my father. So when I look back at my trafficking, I was trying to correct uh, an old wound from, old dangerous trauma, which was, obviously complex trauma that started when I was a very young girl. And then abuses that happened shortly after that with neighbors and things like that. And y'all get it, sexual abuse essay. So I would just encourage that it's going to get better. It takes time. This does not mean you failed. Just because you're having a hard time and it's taking longer than you thought it would. Actually, this is good because you're recognizing that you still need to stay with your support group and you need to stay in the bubble for a little while longer. And it's actually really good to be in this place as you get more steady, as you build the strength. It's like a road you're building. It's brick by brick, literally brick by brick back to normalcy, if there ever was normalcy, or if you're creating that for yourself in your environment. It takes time, and it's going to get better. And we're not going to give up on you. We are not going to give up on you. I don't care what it looks like, feels like, other rejections from people. You are worth this, and you're going to make it, because we're going to be right here waiting for you. I hope I answered that correctly.
Absolutely. And again, we are here and we're not going anywhere. Nobody can run us away. All right, let's go back to Amy. What advice would you give to parents or teen? You know what? Let's do this one. What could families, schools, or communities do differently, Amy?
I believe they could make students more aware of what is actually going on. I think a lot of the world really, they shy away from human trafficking, sex trafficking. I've noticed that there's like some people that just don't even want to talk about it. Or like I had this incident one time where I started volunteering at a shelter for animals and stuff, and they took in stray animals. And a lady asked me, and this was when I was in a program at Scarlet, and I go in, and by this time I was just ready, like I didn't care anymore. Like, what, I'm going to let you know who I am and where I came from. So the lady was asking me a lot of questions about myself, and I told her, I was like, well, I'm in a program for women in sex trafficking. And she automatically was like, her, off the top of her head, she was like, I don't understand why they just don't leave, and I didn't even get upset. I was just like, well, hang on. I was like, well, for me, I was like, I didn't know how to leave. I was like, this started in my home. I was like, this started with my mom. She taught me how to do something that I didn't know what was going on at the time. I was like, women just are not kidnapped and just thrown into sex trafficking. And for her to, it totally changed her perspective and the way she saw human trafficking. Like for me to be able to speak on that and let her know my story, like me and her actually became really good friends, and she would want to come and pick me up, and she wanted to hang out with me all the time. So I think schools and just any places, it's like very, very vital for people to be more aware, because this is happening in your front yard right next door. This is like everywhere, and if it's not, people cannot work with what they don't know. So if you don't bring this out, and if you don't voice it and allow people to know like what's going on, then we can't change it. So I think it's like very, very important that we voice. That's why I'm so grateful like I was asked to do this, because it was like I told you last time, I have a voice, and I feel like God is leading me to say, scream this to the top of the world, like there is help for you. Sex trafficking exists, and there's a way you approach a person, and there's a way we can talk to a person. And if we train people, and if we train each other and give all of that out there to everyone, then it makes a world a better place. I'm sorry, I was going on and on.
Thank you for that. We appreciate it. We have a question that says, and this is for Cynthia. Have you ever encountered someone whose story or introduction to trafficking was completely different from yours? Because we hear you all saying, I wasn't in chains. I wasn't there. I was there mentally, trapped. But was there someone who gave a story that was different from your story? And how are you able to relate to that person and make them feel safe?
Before I answer that, I just want to add to something because I'm so passionate about when Amy spoke. The more truth we share, the more education we give, the less people really, and I'm so passionate, we really as a nation don't really want to know the truth because it is in our backyards and it is in our homes. And when we actually talk about the truth, nobody really wants to deal with that because then you got to deal with your own stuff. I need to say that because it's important. But will you read that question one more time? Thank you.
Certainly I will. Have you ever encountered someone whose entry into sex trafficking was different from yours? And if it was, how were you able to help that person to feel safe? Because we hear you saying that you were not in chains,
Mhm.
but you are mentally bound to the game. And so, what was it if someone had a different entry into sex trafficking,
Mhm.
and how did you support that person?
I have met other survivors that the entry may have slightly been, I mean, none of us have the same exact story, right? But as far as the psychological draw and the grooming and not being in chains, like that is one element that I think that we could all in this panel agree with. That I haven't heard of anyone, that they were. We do hear the stories of someone being taken and just being thrown in this. I personally, in all the elements I have been in, have not spoken to a survivor that were literally yanked and then taken into this life. It was a grooming process. So that element for me in my own arenas has been the same. It's the psychological draw, and the grooming from it. To be able to help someone, to relate to them, to make them feel safe when we are in different elements. I've worked with people, nationally or internationally. It's just to keep a safe space, to have open communication, to recognize the fact that we all are different. We are healing differently. I think where the differences lie is in the healing. And I could name those. I don't want to name those for trigger points, but all of us heal differently. It could be addiction, or it could be cutting. It just that dynamic can change. So I think making someone feel safe is just not judging and just saying, hey, we're here for you. We're here to listen. We're here to do this together, to lock arms with my sisters and say, hey, whatever it takes, let's get this done. Let's talk to each other. Let's communicate. Let's collaborate. Let's figure out what this can look like for our other sisters that are coming behind us.
Thank you for that. Amy, I have a question for you. Annie,
Okay.
I know that you have an organization, so I think this would be a good question for you to answer. As you continue to heal yourself, what gives you hope to do this type of work?
Oh, goodness. First of all, healing is a lifelong journey. No one's ever arrived, including ourselves that have never been trafficked. If you've had trauma in your life, you're probably going to be healing. And if it's a severe trauma for the rest of life, it's never a perfect day or world. But I'm going to tell you what gives me hope is um, watching the survivors get free day by day. And receiving someone into a program, and then the 1 year later, or the 2 months later, or the 3 years later, or the 5 years down the road, to see them still thriving and making breakthroughs for themselves. And then this is what really brings me hope, is seeing them come into the work, which I don't recommend that for every single person. But if you're going to do that, you need to start slow because you can get re-triggered and just it can spiral out of control. I've done it myself, I know. I became that person that was like, I want to do this. And I did, but I kind of jumped in with both feet, like without anyone helping me. It was just me, myself, and I. So the hope part is so important because this work is sometimes very depressing, because you'll see victims come in and out of it and go back, and you'll get angry at yourself and blame yourself, which is totally not right, by the way. You don't need to blame yourself. Everyone is their own person. They make decisions and choices, and you need to own the fact that you can't control their life and you will never control their life. Everyone has free agency, and what you can be best at is the best coach ever. You can be there for them when they come back, or when they rebound, or when they go back, whatever happens. My hope is the connection's still there. And what gives me hope is when someone calls me after I haven't heard from. I had a recent survivor that we helped, and she graduated our program, and she had gone MIA for about 10 years. And I was scared for her. I was like, I hadn't heard from her, but then I bumped into her through, a gas station. I was at a gas station pumping gas, and I'm hearing my name called from the parking lot. Annie, 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 and ran toward me, just hugging me and squeezing me tight. And I'm driving a bus. She just got engaged and she's doing really, really good. She said she had to de disconnect herself from, uh, believe it or not, the support system. And it helped her because she had a different type of healing. So understanding someone and believing in them, no matter where and how long they've been gone, it doesn't mean they're gone forever. It's like when they come back into our lives, it means the world. So that gives me hope as well, is reconnection.
Thank you, Annie. And you also answered another part of her question that I just got in about the recommendation that you would give a survivor who wants to transition into the advocacy work and women who want to come out of their life. So you talked about, take care of yourself first. You jumped in with both feet thinking, hey, I'm ready for this. I can do this, and just take off running. But you have to make sure, and you said, healing is a continual daily thing. And it's not that we reach a point, oh, I'm healed, give me my trophy, walk away, and life is great. It is a healing, it's a daily adjustment to, what, I healed from that thing on yesterday, but now here's something else that I'm healing from on today. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you can be healed enough and you can do the work, and that's good. So
right, thank you. We have men on this call as well. So I want to thank you, gentlemen, for being in the room to help support this cause. I'm going to give this question to Amy. Do you have any advice on how to speak to men generally about the impact of soliciting sex in sustaining trafficking?
I think that one's hard for me too. Do I have any advice on speaking to men? I think all truth is the way to go in any way when it comes to sex trafficking. Like just by speaking to men when it comes to this, in general, like just letting them know, being aware about sex trafficking.
I think they're asking more support of how men monetarily support trafficking by soliciting sex. What would you say to those men who solicit sex?
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you mind it, Amy, if you want to go for it, go for it. If y'all all would like a second to sit in that one, I'm happy to just share a perspective that I actually got recently from a man on that conversation. If that'd be helpful, Amy. I also don't want to cut you off if you were.
No, I think that would be helpful for me because I've never experienced that, and I don't know if I can answer that question. So,
I think that the conversation is, or the question is great. It's also really charged, obviously charged in so many ways. And I think even with your answer that you already gave, the honesty to speak about what it really is, I think is necessary. I think recently I spoke at a local, it was a Catholic parish. It was sometime last year. It might have even been 2 years. And I've gotten to the place where every time we speak, especially at churches, I always focus at least a part of the conversation on demand. Because if we don't more courageously speak about demand when we're having these conversations, we will continue to have exploitation, because without demand, there is no supply, or, I mean, that's very simplified, but the idea of this is a commercial industry where people are being bought and sold and engaged with every single day because there are people that are putting money into the market. And if the money is there to be made, I'm not minimizing the traffickers. place in it, but essentially the trafficker is a businessman responding to money in a market. And so I shared in whatever, probably some of these same words at that Catholic parish that day, probably a lot more depending on what conversation and what questions were asked. And I thought it was just the same old, same old. But last year, I happened to be at that same Catholic parish unexpectedly during the Lenten season for Fish Friday, because you don't eat meat. Somebody made me go to Fish Friday and eat some catfish. And so I was approached by one of the priests of that parish, and he pulled me aside and he said, Rachel, I want you to know that since your talk here, every time someone, a man in the confessional shares with me about sex addiction or pornography usage, I tell him that he is the demand that's creating trafficking in our communities. He's the demand that is participating, and the people in those images that he is participating in likely didn't choose it. And he has to choose today that not only deal with his sin and everything before God, but to understand that it is not benign. It is not a victimless crime. It is a terrible, terrible way that people have described pornography in years past. And that even in this moment still brings tears to my eyes, that when any of us will show up in spaces and say it blatantly that the buyer is the catalyst, that we don't know where that conversation goes. But for now, a year and a half, at least in one church in our community, every time that priest is hearing that confession, that each of those men are having a different lens and a different view on their participation in the problem, their creation of the problem. And so I think that that would be my answer, is say what it is. Like, be willing to be humble and raw and honest. Being truthful is kind, and not only kind to the victims. I think of another survivor panel probably 10 years ago that we had at the law school here at University of Memphis, and she said so easily, for the survivor, for the victim in the crime, saying something is always better than saying nothing. And I think both of those things, like, say what needs to be said. And I think that there's a way to do it that is kind and honest and invitational to change, just the same way that you create space for, any of us can create space for the survivor to say, we are all more complex than what any of us see on the surface. There's so much more to all of our stories. And so there also needs to be a way to walk with men in the complexity that drives them to participate as the buyer as well. I don't know if there's more that the survivors would like to say to that, but
Annie, I see your hand.
Yeah, I'm sure the ladies would love to chime in on this, but I've had this question asked so many times, and I've had men. I actually met a man on outreach that was sitting at the bar. I was at the Venetian, and he was like, "What are you doing here?" I go, "Well, what are you doing here?" He goes, "Well, I'm looking for fun." I said, "Oh, you are, huh?" So I let him have it. I said, "Really? Let me tell you what that fun entails." And so I told him about my story. It only took me a half a minute, and his face, I mean, bright red. And I basically told him, I said, "Hey, these girls, that girl over there," and I'm pointing at another one over another direction. I said, "You don't know her story. And I'm going to tell you what, from me working in this town, being a call girl, whether it looks high class or not, I would say more than 90% of these women that you're looking at over here have a controlling trafficker that, yeah, your chance of getting one of them, and she's lying to you, by the way. She doesn't like you. She's not turned on by you. She's grossed out by you. She's totally acting. And then she's going to go home to an abuser that's going to take all of her money. Is that what you want to be part of?" And then I basically, and I've had men ask me this at different trainings I've done, of course, churches. And I tell the story of my father and how my father was super abusive, and that they need, if they're a father, connect with their daughters. And then I say, is there a dysfunction in your family somewhere? And I'm going to ask about you. What are you doing in your life that's making you want to call and purchase sex? What is that deep intimacy problem that you're having with yourself? Start looking at yourself and not trying to purchase another human and using someone, and deal with your own junk. Get some counseling, bro, because you need it. Okay? And listen, you guys, I don't cut my stuff I'm not soft with it. I don't think these men need soft. Okay? They need to be told you're causing harm. And you need to understand what that looks like on the demand side. Okay? When you touch someone that you don't have any reason or any ownership to trust, just because you paid some money doesn't make it okay. All right? That's abusive. It's paid rape. That's what I tell them. It's paid rape. Do you want to be a rapist? And so sorry, you guys. That's how I am. I'm very blunt because I want to stop it and I want to make it real honest and real hardcore, because I feel like that's the only way they can really hear you, is to be in their face, be a woman, and be part of that experience where you can school them on what it really is. Because no one enjoys doing this. We fake every single thing. So it destroys their fantasy. And I love doing that.
Thank
So.
you. I love that. Destroys their fantasy. Let's just keep destroying their fantasies. All right. I love it. I love it. Thank you. Cynthia, do you or Amy want to speak to that?
I can't follow that. Okay, that's awesome. Thank you, Annie. That was raw and it's real. I mean,
Love
it
it.
just is. Yeah.
I believe this question was like, in all reality, it was for me, because after hearing Rachel and then Annie, because I had like this thing happen to me. I'm just like now 3 years in, so I'm still learning so much. I'm going to be learning for the rest of my life because I have so many years to unlearn. So I had this thing happen to me when I was at a gas station. The guy that owned the store, he kept pursuing me and pursuing me, for my number. And I should have, like, something told me just don't go to the gas station anymore, but it was the gas station I like to get my gas. But this last time, he was like, he offered me money, and I did not know, like, for me, it was like just so real, and I was shocked, and the old me come out. I got a little cussy, and I walked out. But the way Annie just like, did that. And I was like, so it's okay just to throw that story out there, like I could just pull all my stuff out and that's how I protect myself. I use that. So I thank you for that, Annie, because I had to like actually leave that day and call the guy that I do EMDR with and ask him if I could come speak with him, because things like that for me right now, because I'm still healing and I'm still learning. Like when things like that happen to me, it's just like, whoa, like I feel this feeling comes over me. Like I have to protect that person, that little girl that's in me still, that I'm still trying to learn who she is. So I loved that. I needed that. So whoever asked that question, that was from God. God sent that for me. Thank you.
Thank you. This is awesome. And again, we want to also thank everyone who's here on the platform today and asking these questions, because we want you to be educated. This is what Restore Core is here for you. We want you to be educated about what's going on out here. And this question may be a trigger as well, this last question. And then we want to be able to support the room before we leave the air. This question says, and I'm not going to, either one, Cynthia, Amy, Annie, whichever one wants to answer. It says, now that you all have identified a safe space, do you fear the individual who trafficked you?
No, but the reason why is I have so much empowerment from the healing that has been given to me from the other survivors that I've walked with. I've had to deal with not only the trauma. Oops, sorry, lost my earbud. Hold on. Hello. Okay. Oh, goodness. Um, Not only the trauma from the trafficker, but my own when I was younger, familial abuse. And there's so much power in knowing that I've overcome, that I'm not, again, I said that earlier, for anyone that's out there, you are not what has happened to you. I am not those things that happened to me. I am not the deeds that I have performed. I am not that life, but that life has given me such a brand new outlook. Like a therapist and I were working through some things one time, and he said, Cynthia, it's like you were in a coma, right? You're in this coma in life, and you're in this, in this deep, dark coma, and nothing's going on, and you wake up and everything is new and everything is exciting, and you have this new take on life. So even if I see that trafficker today, um, sure, there's anger. Sure, I want them to, to pay, but the fear is gone. There's no, again, it's psychological. That psychological hold on me from a place of insecurity, from a place of hurt, from a place of harm, from a place of years of abuse is no longer there. Those chains, they're not physical, right? They're chains, but they're gone. The bondage is gone, and the healing and the freedom that's in that is amazing.
I actually had I was faced with a trafficker of mine when I went back home when my mom passed away. Um, he actually came to the funeral, and I stayed my distance, and then I left, and he followed me to the store. I was over pumping gas, and he walked over to me as I was going into the store and was telling me to come here. And everything in me was like, oh, just that it was terrifying. But I was like pushing past that fear because I knew I could just, I don't know, God got me through that. Like he said, you got a minute to come over here and talk? And I was like, no, I don't. I've got to get back. Like I've got to get back home. I've got to work. And it was just like, it was nice to see you. And it was so relieving to be able to, I felt like, I stood up for myself, I walked away and I said, no, I got through that. God got me through that. So I'm not terrified anymore. I used to have this thing not too long ago where I would even fear going back. But now it's like, no, I fall forward now. I just keep falling forward. Um, and I love Jesus. So like for me, it's like, I call on Jesus through everything, and, Jesus will help me. So that's my thing now, but I do not fear it.
Do y'all want me to share 1 minute?
Sure.
So when I go up to Minnesota, that's where one of my traffickers are. And I do, when I visit family up there, I do look around my shoulder, and I pay extra close attention. Plus here, because I have another ex-trafficker that lives here. And in fact, the person that, second one, has been wishing me happy birthday and texting on our hotline, and New Year's and Christmas. Did it scare me? No. I'm over that. I mean, that was last time I saw that person, it was, oh gosh, 98. How many years is that? 28 years ago, right? 28 years ago. So my husband's aware of it, and it's still a thought in my mind that I maybe will run into someone one day. I'm not going to probably be afraid, but I will have something to say to them. For sure. I already have it planned out in my head. And I'm going to give grace. I have already forgiven both of them. I think right now they've seen me as an advocate for many years. If they're online, both of them have Facebooks. So they know I'm here. And if they want to apologize anytime soon and give me some of that money back, I'm open. Okay? So I pray for my ex-traffickers. I pray that they would fall on their knees and change their ways and get radically saved. Or before they die, realize what they've done and then make amends with God, because they need to. So That's my strength that I hold. Jesus. Right,
Thank you
ladies?
so much.
Jesus.
Thank you so much for that. And I'm just happy to hear your stories. I am just honored, absolutely honored to be the moderator for today. And your voices mean the world to me, to everyone that's here with Restore Core by Free Life, and everyone on this panel, everyone that's here on the call. Thank you so much. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your love. And again, it continues. Until no one is trafficked, we're going to be here. We're going to be in your face. We're going to be loud. We're going to be proud. And we're going to let you know it is not okay. But we want to let you know as advocates and as survivors, we are okay. As a matter of fact, we are better than okay. Thank you so much. And over to you, Rachel.
There's no words that I can share. Ladies, thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for sharing your joy, your ups and downs. I have the longest list of things that I want to reach out to other people, and I couldn't be more honored that you gave us your time and a glimpse into who you are in the world this afternoon. So thank you to the audience members for joining us, and